Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're doing well and welcome to the Horn Broadcasting Channel. Today we talk about what war means to the education of young Ethiopians who are not at school. For millions of young Ethiopians, the concept of school has become a distant memory, a casualty of a country ravaged by war. The numbers are staggering and paint a picture of national emergency. As of early 2025, over 9 million children are out of school across Ethiopia. This is not a fleeting statistic. It represents nearly threefold increase from 3.1 million out of school children in 2022. The primary drivers are armed conflicts, natural disasters, and resulting economic hardships. The physical destruction is immense. Approximately 18% of schools across the country have been damaged or destroyed. The impact is more acute in conflict zones like Amhara region, where regional president reported that out of a target to enroll 7 million students, only 2.8 million were actually registered. This is not just an education crisis, it is a humanitarian catastrophe that is systematically dismantling the future of a generation. This analysis will explore the profound meaning of this deprivation for out-of-school youth and dissect the reasons why many Ethiopians believe that Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's government does not prioritize this crisis, meaning it doesn't care at all. Let's talk about beyond the classroom, the multi-dimensional meaning of lost education. For young Ethiopian out of school due to war, education loss is far more than missing out of a math or history lessons. Schools in Ethiopia historically functioned as a critical environment for an emotional development, socialization, structure, and protection. Their collapse has stripped children of these lifelines. First, the loss of schooling means a loss of safety and protection. Children are no longer in a structured environment that shields them from the brutalities of conflict. Reports indicate that schools themselves have been occupied by military groups or used to house displaced populations. Without this protective buffer, children exposed to relentless violence, including gunfire and drone strikes, under the heightened risk of recruitment into armed groups. For girls, the situation is even more dire. The closure of schools have been linked to a surge in gender-based violence, including child marriage and rape, as protective community structures collapse. Second, this disruption creates a profound mental crisis. The psychological toll on the children who have experienced displacement, witnessed violence, and lost the educational path is immense. Reports from Amhara document a surge in mental health crisis and suicide attempts among adolescents. With formal support systems like school counselors destroyed and informal networks like community elders displaced, these children are left to grapple with trauma, anxiety, and hopelessness alone. The feeling of having so many years stolen from their lives is a direct contributor to their despair. Third, the loss of education perpetuates a cycle of poverty. The study notes that the educational gap is starkly visible in national exam results. In 2024, only 5.4% of students nationally passed the grade 12 exam, compared to 21.4% in the relatively stable Addis Ababa. This disparity is a direct consequence of conflict, with thousands in the Amhara and Tigray regions unable to even take the exam. Without education, children are pushed into exploitative labor or unsafe migration, locking them out of future opportunities and securing a future of economic marginalization. This generational loss of human potential is arguably the most last of scar of the war. Let's talk about the anatomy of disconnect, war, the government, and not caring. The perception that Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed administration do not care about these out-of-school children is a powerful and increasingly prevalent narrative. It is rooted in a perception of disconnect between the government's rhetoric and its actions on the ground. The government often blames extremist groups for obstructing education and other vital services in areas where armed groups are present. This narrative, while acknowledging the obstruction, can be seen by critics as deflecting responsibility. The reality on the ground is that the conflicts in Tigray, Amhara, and Oromia are often state-led or state-sanctioned military campaigns. The direct consequence of these campaigns is the destruction of schools and the displacement of populations. The perception of not caring arises when government appears to prioritize its military objectives over the protection of civilian infrastructure and well-being of children. Furthermore, Analysts have noted a reluctance on the part of the government to fully acknowledge the severity of the education crisis. Denying the reality of the situation, it is argued, only depends on the nation wants and delays the necessary actions for peace and recovery. When official communication don't play or deflect from the catastrophe affecting millions of children, it fosters a narrative of apathy and an unwillingness to confront the problem. Let's talk about the Medemere contradiction. A vision that excludes a generation. The perception of indifference is further sharpened when considering Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's personal philosophy, encapsulated in his book and political vision Medemere, meaning synergy or coming together. This philosophy calls for unity, prosperity, and a new generation of Ethiopians who can overcome the divisions of the past. However, for many observers, the Medemere generation cannot emerge while millions of its youth are being deprived of education. The war in the northern region has fueled ethnic extremism, making it difficult to unite the country. A young person who has been displaced, traumatized, and left uneducated is unlikely to embody the principle of synergy and unity. As one commentator pointed out, it is impossible to glorify a vision of prosperity where the reality on the ground for the youth is one of instability, lack of opportunity, and despair. The illusion of prosperity and national unity, as expressed by some, is starkly contradicted by a generation of failures presented by the education crisis. The phrase uneducated leading the education system has been used to critique the broader failures of the government's approach to education, which is perceived by some as a focus on indoctrination rather than fostering critical thinking and national development. This contradicts to a sense of hopelessness, fueling brain drain as people lose faith in the country's ability to provide a future for its youth. In conclusion, the cost of inaction. The evidence paints a grim picture. A war has stolen futures of over 9 million Ethiopian children. This is not merely an administrative failure but a profound humanitarian and developmental crisis that will define Ethiopia for decades to come. The meaning of this lost education for young Ethiopians is multifaceted. It presents a loss of safety, a mental health catastrophe, and a denial of any path out of poverty. The widespread perception that Abiy Ahmed does not care is not simply a matter of public opinion. It is a rational assessment of a government that is seen as responsible for the wars that cause destruction, while simultaneously promoting a unifying vision that excludes its most vulnerable citizens. While the government points the finger at armed groups, the international communities and observers note it is reluctant to fully acknowledge the crisis and its failures prioritize peace and education over conflict. Global evidence demonstrates a strong association between school closures and long-term psychological impairment. In Ethiopia, this impairment is already visible in the rising rates of hopelessness and suicide among the adolescents. Without an immediate cessation of conflict and the integration of mental health and psychological support into education recovery, the risk is irreversible damage to Ethiopia's human potential and social cohesion. The pursuit of peace is not a luxury. It is an essential necessity for securing the future of the country and its youth. Time is running out for the millions of young Ethiopians whose childhood and futures are being sacrificed to conflict. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've got a contribution, comment, or a question, please do so in the comment section. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe on our YouTube channel. You can also scroll down and watch some of the topics that we have talked about: East Africa, the Horn of Africa, and Africa at large. Remember, this is the Horn Broadcasting Channel. Have a good time.